She is the worst offensive player.
She's not very offensive competent, bro.
Caitlin Clark laughing at Angel Reese's missed layup.
Generational meme.
To lose the game. Here it is. Here's the video. She can rebound everything, but bro.
An absolute explosion of chaos has just ripped through the heart of the Atlanta Dream, leaving the entire WNBA in a state of sheer, unadulterated shock. What was supposed to be a private locker room dispute has officially erupted into the most damaging, reputation-destroying scandal in modern sports history. Unedited, highly classified security footage from deep inside the Gateway Center arena has just been leaked online, revealing the horrific moment Angel Reese completely lost control and unleashed a vicious, screaming tirade right into the face of her own helpless teammate. The raw audio is terrifying, capturing unhinged screams, explosive expletives, and a level of pure hostility that has left fans utterly horrified. But this isn't just a brief emotional outburst after a heartbreaking loss. This is the definitive, devastating proof that the Atlanta locker room has completely collapsed into total anarchy. Teammates were forced to physically restrain Reese as security rushed the floor, exposing a toxic power struggle that the front office desperately tried to cover up. Now, as the video racks up tens of millions of views, the entire Dream roster has officially turned their backs on her, leaving Angel Reese completely isolated, exposed, and facing an unprecedented career-ending backlash. To truly understand how this explosive situation detonated, you have to look back at the simmering, hidden resentment that has been poisoning the Atlanta Dream's locker room for months. When Angel Reese was brought into this franchise, she was marketed as the undisputed savior, the headlining superstar who would single-handedly carry this team to championship glory. The front office lavished her with special privileges, giant billboards, and relentless media coverage, completely ignoring the veteran players who had spilled blood, sweat, and tears for this organization long before Reese ever stepped foot in the arena. From day one, an uncomfortable hierarchy was established, and the psychological weight on the rest of the roster began to build to a dangerous breaking point. Behind closed doors, the dynamic was far from unified, as subtle passive-aggressive comments in post-game press conferences slowly morphed into open, hostility-filled confrontations during film sessions. Senior players felt completely sidelined and silenced, watching the coaching staff bend over backward to accommodate Reese's demanding playstyle while minimizing everyone else's contributions on the court. Reese constantly demanded the ball in high-pressure situations, insisting that every crucial play be run entirely through her. Yet when those possessions collapsed into missed point-blank layups and unforced turnovers, the blame was mysteriously shifted onto her teammates for failing to create enough space. The boiling frustration reached critical mass as the media narrative spun wildly out of control, constantly elevating Reese as an untouchable icon while branding the rest of the squad as mere background characters. Whispers of severe favoritism began circulating through the league, with rival players quietly observing how fractured and fragile the Dream roster had actually become under the surface. Teammates were reportedly growing exhausted from having to constantly walk on eggshells, forced to endure intense microaggressions whenever a pass wasn't delivered with absolute perfection to Reese in the paint. The sense of camaraderie and collective sacrifice that once defined the Atlanta Dream was systematically dismantled, replaced by an atmosphere steeped in deep jealousy, anxiety, and profound mistrust. Coaches desperately tried to keep a lid on the escalating drama, hosting emergency team meetings behind closed doors to patch up the deepening divide before it spilled into the national headlines. But the emotional damage had already been done, creating a ticking time bomb of unexpressed rage that was only waiting for the right spark to ignite. Every single missed assignment, every sharp glare during timeouts, and every heavy silence in the team bus was leading toward an inevitable, catastrophic collision. The players were living in a high-pressure pressure cooker, bounded by corporate non-disclosure expectations, waiting for the one breaking point where the mask would finally slip off. And when that ultimate breaking point finally arrived, nobody in that arena was prepared for the sheer level of utter destruction it would cause. The catastrophic breaking point finally arrived in the dying seconds of a brutal, high-stakes game against the Indiana Fever that sent shockwaves straight to the top of the league office. With the score deadlocked and the clock bleeding out, Angel Reese aggressively demanded the ball in the paint, screaming at her veteran teammates to clear out and leave her completely uninhibited. What followed was an agonizing, horrifying display that left every single spectator in the arena frozen in absolute disbelief as Reese missed an uncontested, point-blank layup right at the rim. The ball bounced off the backboard into chaos, and as the final buzzer sounded in overtime signaling a devastating loss, the psychological dam completely burst inside the Atlanta huddle. As the players trudged into the narrow hallway leading toward the locker room, away from the immediate glare of national television cameras, Reese exploded into an unhinged, violent rage. But instead of taking accountability for the game-deciding blunder, she singled out her teammate, lunging forward with explosive anger, screaming that the missed opportunity was entirely her fault for clogging the lane. The audio captured Reese screaming at the top of her lungs, claiming her teammates were actively sabotaging her individual stats because they couldn't handle her stardom or her massive endorsement deals. The raw aggression was so severe that 2 assistant coaches had to physically interpose themselves between the players to prevent a full-blown physical altercation on the concrete floor. Then came the first shocking twist that sent pure panic surging through the front office and threatened to tear the entire franchise apart at the seams. Leaked security logs and internal communications revealed that this was not an isolated emotional outburst, but a calculated, desperate attempt to cover up a far deeper scandal. Moments before the game had even tipped off, Reese had allegedly presented the front office with an ultimatum, demanding the immediate trade of 2 key veteran teammates who had openly questioned her efficiency during a previous film session. When management refused to cave to her demands on the spot, Reese threatened to walk away from the team mid-season and expose internal locker room secrets to the media. The outburst in the hallway was not just about a missed layup. It was the violent enforcement of a power move designed to break the locker room spirit and force an immediate roster purge. Teammates stood in stunned silence as they realized the terrifying reality. Their own star player had been working behind their backs to destroy their careers and push them out of the organization entirely. The illusion of a unified team was completely shattered in a matter of seconds, leaving a trail of raw betrayal, overwhelming anger, and irreversible damage that no corporate public relations statement could ever repair. As the leaked hallway footage spread across the internet like wildfire, the emotional fallout inside the organization transformed into an all-out war. The Atlanta Dream roster took a historic, unanimous stand against Angel Reese, staging an emergency sit-in during practice and refusing to take the floor alongside her until management took decisive disciplinary action. The locker room had become a total war zone, with players openly refusing to share the same facilities, speak to her during film sessions, or even acknowledge her presence in the hallway. Corporate sponsors began panicking as brand representatives issued urgent notices to freeze multi-million-dollar advertisement campaigns tied to the franchise. The front office was backed into a terrifying corner, desperately attempting to suppress the story by claiming the video was AI-generated and artificially altered to damage the WNBA's brand image. But just as management scrambled to regain control of the narrative, the second massive twist exploded into the public domain, sending nuclear shockwaves across the entire basketball world. An anonymous whistleblower from deep within the WNBA's officiating and disciplinary committee leaked confidential internal documents to major news outlets. The documents proved that league executives and high-ranking franchise personnel had been actively covering up multiple past altercations involving Reese for over 2 seasons to protect television ratings and commercial partnerships. The leaked files exposed recorded phone calls, erased incident reports, and non-disclosure agreements forced upon lower-level team staff members who had witnessed previous explosive outbursts in private practice facilities. Even more chilling, the documents revealed that league officials had explicitly instructed referees to adjust whistle calls during tight fourth-quarter games to ensure Reese reached specific stat thresholds, keeping her viral marketing power alive. The revelation that her superstar status was actively being protected and manufactured by top-level authorities sent the rest of the Atlanta roster into a state of furious, uncontrollable outrage. Teammates felt completely betrayed, realizing that the entire system was rigged against them to prop up a single individual at the absolute expense of team integrity and fair competition. Rival players across the league began speaking out on social media, demanding a full independent federal investigation into the WNBA's internal operations and corporate governance. The narrative had escalated far beyond a simple locker room shouting match. It was now a full-blown institutional integrity crisis that threatened to pull down the entire structure of professional women's basketball. Angel Reese was now not only fighting for her place on the Atlanta Dream, but battling against widespread accusations that her whole career trajectory was built on corporate protection and institutional corruption. Panic reached unprecedented levels inside the front office as board members called for emergency resignations, leaving the franchise teetering on the absolute edge of total collapse. The catastrophic release of the whistleblower documents transformed an internal team dispute into a brutal, nationwide media execution. Social media platforms completely exploded with millions of furious posts as the hashtags demanding Reese's immediate suspension trended globally across every major network. Sports talk shows, prominent basketball analysts, and mainstream news outlets dedicated entire broadcasting hours to tearing down the narrative surrounding Reese's rise, questioning every stat, every rebound, and every victory she had achieved. Major commercial sponsors, terrified of being linked to corporate corruption and locker room toxicity, began rapidly severing their financial ties. Multi-million-dollar endorsement contracts were canceled overnight as global apparel brands hastily removed her face from giant billboards across major metropolitan cities. The public fallout was swift, unforgiving, and deeply personal, reducing a celebrated cultural icon to one of the most polarizing and criticized figures in modern American sports history. Inside the Atlanta Dream organization, the emotional toll on the remaining players was downright tragic. Veteran players who had dedicated their entire lives to building the franchise were seen breaking down in tears during mandatory press conferences, utterly exhausted by the relentless media circus and corporate betrayal. The locker room, once a sanctuary of unity and athletic ambition, had felt more like a courtroom, filled with immense tension, legal representatives, and private investigators interrogating staff members. Fans who had purchased season tickets turned their anger directly onto the front office, gathering in large crowds outside the Gateway Center Arena to burn jerseys and demand the immediate resignation of the entire executive board. The emotional damage ran so deep that several players reportedly requested emergency mental health leaves, unable to cope with a severe psychological strain of playing under a spotlight of national contempt and institutional paranoia. Angel Reese found herself completely isolated from the rest of the sporting world, hunkered down inside her residence while security details guarded the perimeter against swarms of paparazzi and enraged fans. Former mentors, fellow draft classmates, and high-profile league allies quietly distanced themselves, leaving her without a public defense mechanism as the media storm raged on. The raw, unfiltered hatred pouring in from social media comments created an unbearable environment, as every past video clip, press interaction, and missed shot was re-examined and mocked by millions of online onlookers. The league office was forced to go into complete damage control lockdown, issuing vague, carefully worded press releases that only fueled the public's demands for total transparency and immediate punishment. What was once billed as a historic era of unprecedented growth and superstar empowerment for women's basketball had devolved into an agonizing public nightmare, exposing the dark, toxic underbelly of fame, corporate greed, and unchecked ego. Just when the sports world believed this scandal had reached its ultimate peak, a final, mind-bending revelation surfaced that turned the entire narrative completely upside down. High-level cybersecurity investigators tracing the source of the original video leak delivered a bombshell report to league executives. The footage had not been leaked by an angry fan, a rogue staff member, or a bitter rival. The original, raw camera feed was traced directly back to an encrypted device belonging to Angel Reese's own inner management and legal circle. Shockwaves tore through the front office as the horrifying truth began to materialize. Reese's team had intentionally arranged for the explosive confrontation to be recorded and pushed into the public domain as part of a high-risk, scorched-earth strategy to force a multi-million-dollar buyout and secure an immediate transfer to a rival powerhouse franchise. The strategy, however, had backfired catastrophically, spiraling far beyond their control once the whistleblower leaked the internal corruption files alongside it. But before the front office could process the sheer scale of this psychological betrayal, an even bigger bombshell dropped during a live, unannounced global press conference. Surrounded by a team of high-profile legal defense attorneys, Angel Reese stepped up to the podium with an icy, unbothered expression that chilled everyone watching to the bone. Instead of offering an apology or announcing her departure from the sport, she pulled out a thick leather binder containing never-before-seen audio recordings, internal text messages, and private financial ledgers from top WNBA executives and team owners across multiple franchises. Looking directly into the main broadcast camera with an unsettling, confident smile, Reese declared that if the Atlanta Dream or the WNBA attempted to suspend her, terminate her contract, or pin the league's systemic corruption on her name, she was fully prepared to release every single piece of evidence to the federal government and mainstream media outlets. The recordings allegedly contained explicit evidence of widespread game manipulation, secret illegal draft rigging arrangements involving top college prospects like Paige Bueckers, and systematic financial fraud extending to the highest levels of the league's executive board. The room went dead silent as the sheer magnitude of her threat hung heavily in the air. As journalists scrambled to shout questions, Reese simply closed the binder, looked straight into the lens, and uttered a final, bone-chilling warning. "You all thought I was playing their game, but I own the entire board, and if I go down, I'm taking every single one of you down with me." With those final words, she walked off the stage, leaving the entire basketball world suspended in absolute horror, realizing that the real war had only just begun. Who really masterminded the ultimate league cover-up, and which major superstars will be completely destroyed when the next set of files is officially leaked to the public? This is without a doubt the most explosive, career-destroying scandal in WNBA history, and the fallout is far from over. What do you think about Angel Reese's nuclear threat to expose the entire league? Did her team make the ultimate mistake by leaking that footage? Or is the WNBA front office finally getting caught in their own web of lies and cover-ups? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below right now. We want to hear your absolute hot takes. Do you think Angel Reese should be banned from professional basketball forever, or is she the ultimate mastermind pulling the strings behind the scenes? Make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and turn on all notification alerts so you never miss a single second of this rapidly unfolding, high-stakes drama. The next round of leaked files could drop at any moment, and you don't want to miss what happens next.